Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Today's video is going to be another battle of the palettes, and today we're going to be talking about those black, gray, cool-toned color stories. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. If you're into eyeshadow palettes, Essence and Catrice, and getting the use out of your makeup the way that I am, then definitely stay tuned because today we're going to be comparing some palettes again that have a similar-ish color story, and we're going to go about it as if they were to battle it out in a boxing match with 12 rounds to see who's the winner. So I've got 4 slightly comparable color stories that kind of can give you the same vibe. And today I've chosen these like smoky, grayish black cool tone palettes that I think for a lot of people are like the classic cool tone palette. I have 4 of them here, and we're going to be comparing them, and we're going to give points in every round. If you want to join me and give points yourself as we're going along the way, then feel free to do so and let me know in a comment down below what your division would be in terms of points for all of these different metrics. And in case you're new here, it may be good to know that I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, which greatly skews my makeup preferences. And because I have been buying, trying, and reviewing makeup for more than a decade, I also have some very strong favorites. So if you'd like to join the Snow Angel Club, just click subscribe down below. So what palettes will be featured in today's video? Huda Beauty Wild Jaguar is going to be one of the palettes that we're going to be comparing today. The Nabla Cutie Platinum, which looks like this. The Colourpop Head Capricorn in Charge. And then I have the Lime Crime Venus Immortalis. So these are all palettes that I feel can give a very similar-ish look. They're all cool toned, they're all like grayish brown, sort of smoky vibes. And to me, these are quite comparable, and that's why I wanted to chat about them today. So over in the red corner, we'll have the Huda Beauty. Over in the green corner, we'll have the Nabla. The points for the Colourpop go into the yellow color corner, and the blue corner is going to be the Lime Crime. I knew going into this that I had a very strong favorite, and in some of these videos, sometimes my favorite doesn't win. But this time it definitely does. So leave me a comment down below with your guess which of these 4 palettes you think is my favorite and is also going to get the most points. I would love to know. We're kicking things off with round number 1, which is the price point that these palettes go for. The Huda Beauty is 32 euros. The Nabla is 25. The Colourpop was 9 euros. And the Lime Crime is 33. So the cheapest one here gets the point. The point goes to the Colourpop in the yellow corner just for it being the cheapest. And by the way, if you see me looking down there, that's because that's where I have my laptop with all the information. Round number 2 is going to be availability. So where can you buy these? The Huda Beauty is possibly the most widely available brand. I can buy it in the Netherlands from Ici Paris, but I know it's available from Sephora in a lot of countries. It's stocked on Cult Beauty, so I believe you can also order it internationally if the brand happens to not be stocked where you live, but it is quite widely available. The Nabla one is a bit harder to find. You can find Nabla on their official website, and they do ship internationally. If you're in the US, Nabla is also stocked by Ulta, and the brand is for sale at Beauty Bay, which is an international retailer. The Colourpop one sadly has been discontinued, so the only place you could ever get it was perhaps the Colourpop website, and maybe in the US at some retailers that stock Colourpop, such as Ulta, and I believe they're in Target now as well. But this particular palette I can no longer find on the Colourpop website. And then finally, the Lime Crime one I could find on the Douglas website, so it's for sale over here. It's an online only brand though, so you will not be able to find the brand in stores, but Douglas in Europe does stock Lime Crime, and it can also be bought through the official Lime Crime website. So because it's the best, most easily available palette here, the point goes to the red corner to the Huda Beauty Wild Jaguar. And then we get to round number 3, which is where things get a little bit more interesting because we're talking about grams of product. So how much product do you actually get? For the Huda Beauty, that's 8.4 grams. For the Nabla, that's 7.7. For the Colourpop, that's 5.9, and for the Lime Crime, that's 1288 grams. So here, the Lime Crime wins because you do get the most amount of product. But that's not where the interest sort of stops, because round number 4 is how many pans do you get? So then we can think of how much gram do we get in each product. Now, a standard sized eyeshadow is 1.2 grams. Like a standard round pan usually comes with 1.2 grams of product. And in some palettes, you sometimes simply get less. So if we then take into consideration that the Huda Beauty only comes with 8.4 grams of product in 9 pans, you get less than a gram of product in every single pan. Is that then a good deal? I leave that up to you. That's your decision. In the Nabla, we get 7.7 grams spread over 6 different pans. So that's just over a gram per pan. And then we have the Colourpop, which has 4 shades in with 5.9 grams. So again, here you get a little bit more. And then the Lime Crime, you get 12.88 grams in 8 different pans. So the Lime Crime actually also comes with the most product per pan. And I feel that the 8-pan color story of the Lime Crime is a bit more satisfying. So that's why for me here, the blue corner also gets the point. Round number 5, we need to talk about packaging. So what's the packaging like? I really appreciate these small Huda Beauty 9-pan palettes, but they are hard plastic. You do get a mirror inside it, but these aren't, you know, removable or anything like that. And, you know, these do kind of get lost in my collection a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. It's actually my aim to sometime in the future, when I go back to some palettes, to rope in some of my Huda Beauty like 9 pans and play around with those, because I have 9 or maybe even more of these, and I haven't used them in a while because they kind of like get tucked away in a corner in my makeup drawers, and then I kind of forget about them. So even though they're very small, and I think if you're someone who travels a lot, that these are really nice, they're very compact, but the packaging I feel is not that sturdy. I mean, it is plastic after all. It's good, it's nice, it's okay, but it's not my favorite. I do really like the Nabla packaging as well, but it is a bit chunkier. So here we get the 6 pans again with the mirror, but this is cardboard. So this I always feel for travel is a bit safer, but it is a slightly bulkier packaging. And to be quite fair, I mean, the design on the front really doesn't do anything for me. So that's why this gets knocked down just a touch, because I don't find this inspiring at all. The Colourpop comes with the outer box, which I've kept, because if you have a couple of these Colourpop quads, you would not be able to tell them apart if you have a few of them, and I had a few of them. This is okay. It's got a cute layout, it's clear packaging, but it's incredibly cheap, and I always feel like these are going to break every single time I open it. That's how it feels. So this is definitely not my favorite packaging, and these are very fragile as well. In some of my orders, some of the packaging that came like this from Colourpop, these shadows actually came cracked. I did get replacements for it, but that happens with these, so these are not great for travel at all. My favorite packaging would have to be the Lime Crime. Again, it's bulky. That's the only thing. If this was slimmer, I would have loved it so much more, but just this. It's so, like, it goes with the entire Venus line they already had. It's very consistent with that. The colors on the front give you an idea of what's going on inside it. I love the Venus of Milo, is that what it's called? Like the sculpture that they've used here. And then here on the inside as well, that sort of design is pulled through. I also like how the background of this is quite neutral, which means you can see the colors really well as well. We get a mirror in here as well. This would have gotten bonus points if the pans were removable, but overall, this is my favorite packaging of these 4, so the blue corner gets the point. Then we need to talk about the level of pigmentation. So I feel that Huda Beauty always is like spot on when it comes to pigmentation, but the formulation of these smaller 9 pans is different from the larger palette. The larger palettes are usually produced in Italy, and these are made in China. So the formulation is definitely going to be different because they're made in a completely different factory. So if you've tried Huda Beauty in the past, that may be something that, you know, you want to look out for, if that's something you want to take into consideration. The Nabla is really pigmented as well, but I feel that this formulation can be a little bit difficult to blend sometimes, especially that darker brown can be a bit difficult to really work into the skin nicely. Colourpop has really pigmented shades, but I feel that with Colourpop overall, whatever I've tried, the quality is just quite wishy-washy. So even though this might be a blendable palette, I know that if you were still able to buy this and you buy yours, that your blendability and pigmentation level may be very different to the one I have, because our quality control isn't the best. So I could never give the point to Colourpop here, because with Colourpop you just don't really know what you buy in advance. Like when you order it, you could get something that just isn't as good as some people who bought it from a different batch, because they're very inconsistent. So I can't really account for that. In terms of pigmentation, I feel that the Lime Crime is fairly pigmented, but some of these shades in here are quite soft. So in terms of like pigmentation level, I feel like the shimmers are good and these darker ones, but the other 4 shades that are a lot lighter, I feel in terms of pigmentation aren't necessarily my favorite. So here the point goes to the red corner, to the Huda Beauty Wild Jaguar. I was holding it upside down. Textures and finishes then. I feel that a lot of these palettes are just mattes and metallics. The Huda Beauty, mattes and metallics. The Nabla, mattes and metallics. The Colourpop, same thing, mattes and metallics. The only one here that offers a little bit more interest in terms of like different textures, and that has to do with the level of pigmentation, that I just knocked it down a point for, is the Lime Crime. Because the Lime Crime has some softer shades, some things that may be categorized more so as a satin. It's not full on metallic right off the bat, and I do actually prefer that, which is why the blue corner here gets the point. Round number 8 is linked to that, the matte to shimmer ratio. Now we all know that I prefer a shimmer over a matte, and most of these palettes have at least an equal split or more shimmers than mattes. Let's have a look at the Huda Beauty. In here, yes, we get 4 mattes and 5 shimmers. What's not to love? In the Nabla, 4 shimmers, 2 mattes. The Colourpop has an equal split, 2 mattes, 2 shimmers. And the Venus from Lime Crime has 4 mattes and 4 shimmers. This is more of a satin shade, and this white as well. But yeah, they are shimmers in a way. So for me, here I would have to give the point to the Huda Beauty, because they have the pigmentation and we get more shimmers than we do mattes. I just love it. But now we need to talk about the color story. Round number 9, the color story. What is it like? The Huda Beauty Wild Jaguar is very smoky, dark, super saturated, and then we get this one very random super yellow tone gold. I mean, when I go into this palette, I ignore that. So for me, yes, I appreciate there being more shimmers than mattes, but for me, this is more like an 8 pan. And I don't necessarily love that shade either. So for me, I kind of go into it like this. So I take out the warm tones. That's what I do when I use it. So not perfect. The Nabla Platinum Cutie, I have always called the cool tone palette for people who don't like cool tones. If you have an olive undertone, if you have a warm undertone, try this. It's going to look cool toned on you, but like me, if you're like me, you've got a cool to neutral undertone yourself, this is going to pull very warm toned, because we only get 3 cool tones in here. And these aren't. Now this one, this side I still like. Because this, if I blend it well and I use it with the right shades, this pulls a bit pinky on me. So it has that pinkness to it, a reddish undertone that works quite well for me for that reason. But that bronze, it's like that yellow tone gold in the Huda Beauty. I just completely ignore it altogether. And for me, this is a 5 pan palette, which is not ideal in terms of color story. Now the Colourpop is nice, but this is just so limiting in what it can do. I mean, there's quite a big leap between these 2 mattes in terms of like how light and how dark they are. So this is something I would never put in the crease. I'd rarely put it in the outer V because it's just so dark that it just instantly makes it look like I was punched in the face. And then the two shimmers, there's just not a lot of dimension in this. So it's not very versatile, and I like my color stories to be versatile. We all know that by now. So for me, the most versatile one is the Lime Crime Venus Immortalis. Yes, it's all cool tones. We don't get a random, not a single random warm tone in here, which I love. The only issue I have with this is that I wish that the shade Moth would have been a little bit better as a transition shade, because we only really have that gray and there's quite a big leap between the two. So for me, if this shade had been just a touch different, more of a mauve, a little bit stronger in its pigmentation perhaps, I think this palette would have even been more successful for me. But out of these four, this is my favorite color story. So round number 9 goes to the blue corner, to the Lime Crime, and then we're moving on to round number 10, which is the blendability. Now I find Huda Beauty shadows to be quite blendable. I personally don't notice that much of a difference between the Italian and the Chinese formulations, you could say. But because it has quite deep shades, this is quite deep, this is quite deep. I'm like, and also these shimmers are quite deep. I find that it's therefore more difficult to work with. Not because it's not blendable, they blend just fine, but if you're as light as I am, dark shades can just be a little bit more challenging to work with. That's just the reality of it. Maybe if you have a much deeper skin tone, this can look a little bit more natural, and that will help the blendability of the shades. Also, I think that because it's got some warmer tones, people with warmer undertones may be able to get away with this a little bit better than I do. But everything I do with this is just going to look very glam, and that's not always what I'm looking for. So the Nabla Cutie is blendable, but I feel that because some of these shades aren't necessarily perfect for my undertone, it takes me a little bit longer to get them to the point where I'd like them to be. It's just a little less seamless. It's clashing just a touch. And then I'm mainly talking about these two browns on the end. I can make them look pinky if I use a very, very sheer hand, very wispy brushes. The minute I pack these on too strongly, it's not going to look flattering. And then the Colourpop, again, quite a blendable formula as well, but I've already mentioned my take on Colourpop's formulation overall. It's quite wishy-washy. You never know exactly what you're going to get. So even though mine are quite blendable, I just can't safely say like, oh, you need to go out and buy this, because I know Colourpop can just be a little bit hit and miss. For me, the most easy to blend formulation, also because it has those softer shades that I knocked it off a point a couple of rounds ago for, is the Lime Crime Venus Immortalis. Because you get that moth shade, I just mentioned how I wish it was a little bit more intense. But this blended with the gray shade, or this blending a little bit of that purple in there, and then this you can use to blend out that black. And that's just going to give you a lot of dimension and a lot of versatility out of the palette. You can build up these three to make them go kapow, but you can also combine it with some of these softer shades. And if you want to add a little bit of a subtle shimmer, you can use the white as well. And then it will just work a lot better. So that's why this is the most versatile. It's more blendable because of it. And that's why the blue corner gets the point. Round 11 then. Fallout, the level of fallout with the Huda Beauty, because it's dark, because there are some flaky shimmers in there. Do I love them? Oh yes, for sure. But upon application, you need to be careful with your makeup application techniques to not have them like fall down your face immediately. So with the Huda Beauty, I feel it is quite prone to fallout, unfortunately. The Nabla one is quite hard pressed actually. Even though these metallics go on very intense, they are a little harder pressed, making them less prone to fallout and quite possibly some of the easiest shimmers to work with in the entire array that we have here today. The Colourpop ones, I find the shimmers in these little 4-pan palettes to be intense for sure, but they also have a certain level of flakiness to it, which again can lead to fallout. So you have to be a little bit more careful. In the Venus Immortalis, I feel the opposite. It's not the shimmers that can be problematic, but the mattes, because these mattes, especially the black and the purple, can have a bit of a powdery texture sometimes, and that can fall down your cheeks. So that's why in terms of like falloutness, I would say the Cutie palette from Nabla is the best one in terms of it not giving you any fallout. And then my final round is always longevity. So how do these wear throughout the day? If you wear them for a full day, do they crease? Do they create fallout throughout the day because the shimmers start falling down your eyelids? That's definitely not the case here. I feel the Huda Beauty has really great staying power. So even though you need to be careful when you apply it, I feel once you get it there, it stays looking vibrant all day and you've got a stunning look. With the Nabla, even though it looks really pretty once applied first, I feel the shimmers can be a little bit more creased. I just feel there's a certain level of creaminess to the shimmers in the Nabla palette that makes it more prone to creasing on my Huda deep set eyes. They just do. Even though I double prime my lids and I try my hardest, after 8 hours of wear, you can definitely see it breaking apart. The same thing actually for the Colourpop, but with the Colourpop I have a much different issue actually why I'm not giving it a point. It fades. The mattes tend to lose its intensity, the shimmers break up, and you get those little sparkles that fall down your face throughout the day. If you've experienced this before, you know what I'm talking about. So that's why I feel that the Colourpop just isn't quite perfect. And with the Lime Crime actually as well, it looks very pretty. It's not prone to creasing on me, but I feel that the look does lose its intensity throughout the day. So it tends to fade a little. It gets that lived-in look, which with a smoky eye is actually something I do really like. But if I have to be very objective here, I would have to give the point to the red corner, to the Huda Beauty, because once that's on, and you've got it where you want it to go, it just won't budge until you take it off at the end of the day. So that's one gets the point. So where does that leave us in the grand scheme of things? I should have given 4 points to the red corner by now, 1 to the green, 1 to the yellow, and the blue corner, the Lime Crime Venus Immortalis, has 6 points. So that's the winner, and that is also what I had predicted would be the winner today. If I think of a gray, smoky, black, this is it. This is what's in my brain, and not a lot of people talk about it. But I feel it works, and it works really well for me. I think that the other palettes are good as well. You may see one of these popping up in a declutter and that it's going to be leaving my collection, but for that you're going to have to stay tuned because I will be showing you my eyeshadow palette declutter very, very soon. I will leave some links in the description box down below that if you were to be interested in some of these and you'd like to purchase them, that you can find them that way as well. For the ones that are still available, I'll make sure to do that. Please be noted though that those links may be affiliated links because I am part of an affiliate program, and there is also a link in the description box down below where I have created a shelf where you can shop all of my favorite products, and I would greatly appreciate it if you do want to make a purchase that you use one of those links and help the channel out just a teensy tiny little bit. That would be great. And without further ado, thank you so very much for watching today. Thumbs up the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make several videos every single week, and we're currently in the midst of my makeup declutters every Friday. So I hope you'd like to stay tuned for more, and then I hope to see you in my next one. Bye-bye!